All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. We have a really exciting session planned and put together today for all of you, and we're really glad that you could all join us for another exciting episode of Product Management Night at lunchtime. My partner Jeff and I are here today to tell you a little bit more about Product Management Festival, what it's all about, what we do, and then introduce you to our incredible speakers that we have today. So Product Management Festival started back in 2012 with the goal of connecting all the product management professionals all around the world for networking, learning, and growing individually and professionally. And since then, the organization has expanded the offerings and has brought a lot of transparency into our profession, getting from what type of background each of us has to salary insights and why not. And being an international organization, Product Management Festival has managed to be able to gather a lot of interesting insights into how product management is being done in different countries all around the world. I personally attended their last year's conference back in November, and hands down, it's been the best product management festival and conference I've ever been to. The quality of the speakers, the quality of the content, and everything that was done, it was incredible. I managed to meet a lot of inspiring product leaders there, and had a great time overall, and learned a ton, and managed to come back to Toronto and apply a lot of things that I did learn myself at the conference. So they have two conferences every year. I haven't been to the one in Singapore, but Shobhit, one of our speakers today, will be speaking at that one as well. And we also have PM nights. Now, this is a lunchtime event, but usually we get together at least once a quarter to talk about product management and bring awesome speakers from the community and all around the world to share their learnings with all of us. Product Management Festival, they've generously offered a 20% discount with the coupon and discount code that you see here. So if you're interested in attending the next upcoming, you can use this coupon to get a 20% discount. So like you said, Jeff and I are really excited to have you all here today. And I'm gonna pass this over to Jeff to tell you more about Shobhit, our awesome speaker. And then after that, I'll take things back to talk to Dennis and do an AMA based on the questions that you submitted for Dennis. Jeff, all yours.
Thanks, Amin. Hi, everyone. Jeff Meister, based here in Toronto. Nice to be here. I am a senior director of product management at a company called Avanade, and I can tell you, as a hiring manager, the salary survey and skills survey of Product Management Festival has been quite helpful in the past. So why don't we just move on to our speakers for the day. So I'm going to introduce Shobhit here. So Shobhit is passionate about building amazing technology products, learning, and teaching. In his day job, he serves as the product manager at Google for Crashlytics, which is used by most mobile apps to track and to fix crashes. After spending 7 years in sales and engineering, learning how to build and sell products, Shobhit did a stint as a consultant at McKinsey, and then made the switch to product management to learn how to manage products from end to end. So prior to that, he founded a startup called Adaptly, which ultimately he grew to 150 people and sold to Accenture. So yeah, looking forward to this. Shobhit.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for having me here. Really glad to be here. Can you hear me? Just somebody give me a thumbs up. Okay, perfect. I got lots of thumbs. Okay, let me just share my screen and then we'll get going. So while I pull up the slide, just so you know, I day job work at Google as a product manager, and then I run coaching and teaching product managers at Intentional Product Manager. So you know, that's what gives me a lot of these insights that I'm here to share with all of you. So the stories you must master as a product manager. Let's start to talk about why I believe this topic is important. So we are all in some sense always trying to figure out what's the impact we're having. What is it that we're really contributing as product managers? And I was joking. Well, I was kind of joking around, but only semi-joking around, where um, somebody asked this at a conference that, hey, like, what's the impact that we have? I was like, well, we directly we do nothing. We don't ship code. We're not able to design the UX. Like, what is it that we're actually contributing to the end product and the business? The point is that our impact is through our influence. It's because of the activities of these other people who we are able to inspire and motivate and course correct. That's what ultimately builds that product, delivers those launches, that generates that value. So for me, like, product management and having influence is almost like, if you don't have one, you can't really do the other. Now, where does influence come from? Most people would tell you that it comes from the strength of your arguments, right? Just, how much you've thought about a topic, how well you know about it. Are you able to articulate it well? All those things definitely matter. But one thing that people forget is that your influence really comes from your brand. It comes from all the actions that you've done so far that have led people to have certain associations with you. And that is what makes it so much easier at points to argue for something. If you have a brand that says this person's strategic, this person's really the vision person, people are going to believe you much more easily than if you're new and you're just known to be a good soldier, somebody who carries on tasks well, delivers well, rather than somebody who is known to challenge the status quo. Now, what I want to encourage all of you is to be very, very intentional about your brand. Like, really think about what you want your brand to be. And what I'll do is I'll share my own technique with you on what I want my brand to be. And by the way, I've missed this, but your brand is basically what other people say about you when you're not in the room, right? But so that's the sum total of the impressions that you've left on there. So for example, I put these 3 attributes as top of my brand list: being candid, being inspiring, and being strategic. Those are things that are most important to me. And here I've written down my own narrative on why do these things matter to me. It's like, why do I want to be candid? Why do I want to inspire people? Why do I want to be known as strategic? I've clearly outlined it. And I look at it daily as a practice. And the reason for that is it's easy to go through life just reacting, just reacting to the situation. Something's happening and you're just like sort of getting thrown into that, and you just follow along rather than being deliberate and intentional about life. So I try to put this front and center. An example of this is right now upstairs, I hear my kids screaming and they're running around. You hopefully don't hear the screaming, but I'm still here and I'm still trying to be inspiring and just like working through that. So a kind of a funny example that's happening right now, but it's important to be intentional about what your brand is. So the reason why I went on this this thing about brand and why it really matters, because it connects to the topic today, which is what I believe the 4 stories that you must master as a product manager, and they might not be what you think. So let's get into that. Now, why these 4 stories? I'll explain that. So do you remember what you had for dinner 2 nights ago? How many people remember that? I guess there's no way for me to know, but whoever I can see, put your hands up. What did you have for dinner 2 nights ago? People who I see, like very few of them actually. Actually, yeah, somebody says I don't. Yeah, yeah. Like most people don't. But do you remember what you had for dinner at Thanksgiving? I actually can't see most people, but I'm just going to assume answers. You know, when I don't get answers, I just assume. Yep, yep. Everybody remembers what they had for Thanksgiving. Now, do you remember the time when you like experimented and made something new and it really turned out to be bad? Do you remember that piece? I can't see people. I can't see the responses, so I'm just going to assume. Yep, of course you remember that. I'm seeing some responses come up on chat. Yeah. So the reason why I ask these questions is when people remember us, they don't remember the entire story. And there's been a lot of scientific research that has been done to prove this. For any experience, they remember the high points and the low points, right? Like what was thing that was really amazing and what was thing that really sucked. So the stories that I want you to master are those that really might leave people with some of the highest impressions of you, and the cases where there's an opportunity where they might actually leave with a very negative impression with you. But and what I'm telling you is you can still come out ahead even in those cases. So let's talk about those. So the four stories I believe that are important are: number one, a chance for a high point, which is tell me about yourself. You know, the dreaded classic introduction question, especially if you go into an interview, that's very often the first person that the interviewer asks. So I'm going to talk through how you should think about that and how I think about that sort of story. The next one is the product update. Like, tell me what's happening with the product. What's happened this week? How are we doing here? Your boss comes in and asks you, hey, how are we doing? And a lot of people dread that. They're like, oh crap, I got to come up with an answer. So that's a story. If you master, it's a chance for a high point. Low point, the story of where you're clearly at fault, right? Where it's clear that you screwed up, but you still want to have the other person leave with a positive impression. That's the story you must master there. And the other low point story is it's more of a conversation, but how many times have you've had this thing of, hey, why don't we just build this? I don't get it. Like, why wouldn't we just ship it? It's clearly valuable for customers. I don't know what you guys are doing. So that's another low point story that I want you to do well. So what I'm going to attempt to do is I'm going to attempt to cover all of them in the next 20 minutes. I know I'll rush through some of them, but at least you'll have a flavor of what to do. So let's begin with my favorite, which is tell me about yourself. Okay, so you're at an interview or just like you meet someone at your company and they ask you, hey, so I'll pick up a name. Hemal, why don't you tell me about yourself? And then, the classic answer I get is, well, I am a product manager at this company, but it's interesting. I graduated in 1993 from this school, and then for 8 years, I worked as this, and it's going. 15 minutes have gone by, and the story ends. Now, I wish I was just kidding, but it's happened so many times in interviews where I just meant it to be a starter. I just meant it to break the ice so that we could actually get in the interview. But 15 minutes later, the person's still going on. What you need to do is you need to really give a narrative of what you stand for in that story. And the story structure is always, people know it to be a very simple structure, which is hook, story, action. The hook is the thing that draws people in. If you, one thing to observe is try to look at Facebook ads and try to find ones that catch your attention. What they're all doing is they are having some sort of hook in the beginning that, maybe it's a question that they asked you. Maybe it's something that surprised you, that draws your attention in. then they tell you a story that relates with you emotionally, and then ultimately they ask you to take action. So I want you to think of your own story in a similar manner. And I'll give you, okay, I guess I'm speaking with the slide built, but yeah, that's the structure I want you to follow. And I'll give you an example of my story. By the way, this in itself, I could talk about this for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. But it's one of those skills that you really must master as a product manager, storytelling in general, but especially a story about you. So I'll give you my example. So when I give whenever I need to tell a story about myself, uh, putting the hat on as somebody who's leading intentional product manager, I say, look, what I want each product manager to do is to realize their potential as a product leader. That's the hook. And it's because I went through a transformation like this when I was as one of my third startup jobs. And then I describe the story. And, the story has intrigue. I became an order taker product manager, even though I was awesome before. And I had to win my team's trust back. And I might even describe how, how upset I felt that after a year of working hard, I wasn't contributing. My CEO said that I hadn't established product vision. And then I sort of do the reveal on what had actually happened, which was just that I was overwhelmed, overworked. And then I go into, the initial solution, which is always the breaking point that, yeah, if I thought that if I just work harder, I will get there. And then I had a turning point on this, followed by the ending, and the turning point in this case was I realized that if I worked intentionally and I redesigned my job rather than just taking it as given, I could actually make a huge difference. And then I come to the exclamation point, which is I went from underperformer to the highest rating within a year, and that's how I started intentional product manager. So that's in a snapshot of the story that I tell when I'm introducing myself as a product manager. Now you will have your own story, but here's like the 3 or 4 questions that are actually not on the slide, but I'll talk about them, that I want you to think about when you think about mastering this story. Number 1 is, what is it that you stand for? And I know it sounds grand, but it could be something as simple as, I'm a product manager who just loves building, who just loves figuring out the needs that customers are not able to articulate themselves. Ooh, I am intrigued. And by the way, I'm just making it up on the fly. So I'm intrigued. And then rather than giving me a list of all the places that you worked, you're like, oh, and as an example, when I was working at this place, this is what I did. And then at this place, this is what I did. And over these years, what I've built is a skill set of trying to listen in a way and ask customer interview questions in a way that I can uncover those things. And then your call to action, if this is an interview, could be, what would you like to talk about next? And that's it. And now suddenly, I am so intrigued, like you would have won that interview right there and then. Even if you start screwing up on some of the other questions, that initial impression, that high point, I will remember that as an interviewer. So I want you to challenge, I want to challenge all of you to really think about, what do you want your story to be? What do you want to stand out for? What are the 1 or 2 examples that really support that? And what you want your call to action to be. Cool. I know there might be questions, but I think we're going to do questions at the end. But feel free to put them in chat, and I'll come back to them in the end. Okay, so that was number 1, your own story. The second one is, it's very, it sounds very simple. Like, give us a product update. Just tell me what's happening. How's it going? And in this case, as usual, let me describe you the pitfalls and then your way out of it. So the product updates typically fail because of a few reasons that I will describe, but fundamentally, they fail because you're focused on the what and not on the so what and the then what. I'll repeat that. You're focused on the what and not on the so what and not on the then what. So an example where I failed at it is like, in my group, we have a list of top 5 initiatives that we are tracking. And every week before we begin one of our meetings, we provide updates on that. And my failure story was, somebody asked me, so how's it going? And I said, oh yeah, this week we're working on this and we are, laying out the infrastructure and we're about to begin this. And yeah, that's it. And they were like, heads nodding, but not really nodding. You could feel people were half there and half they were like, I wish this person would just stop talking. Versus a story which was like, which I will describe in a few minutes. But it's too much focus on the what and not the so what and then what. And to describe it more, the main reasons why stories fail is, one, you know too much and you assume that the other person also knows everything or cares about everything as much as you do. Second, you give them the territory and not the map. So the idea here is that, look, both of these are actually maps of Tokyo. The left one is completely wrong and the right one is completely wrong. There's no way that this station is geographically in a straight line next to this station, this station, this station. And there's no ways that there's, a structure like this over there. But you don't care about the territory. You're trying to achieve an objective and you care about the map that will help you get there. So, for example, if you're looking at the subway map, all you need to know is, one, do I get off at the 4th station or the 5th station? Do I need to change my train? Like, those are the kinds of questions you have. And while if you're looking at this, the map on the right, you're probably trying to figure out, how do I walk to that landmark I want to get to? So based on the objective of the person, what you tell them changes dramatically. I know I'm belaboring this point, but it's important. And then the last one is the lack of forward momentum. So what is forward momentum, right? So here the concept is, if you, you might give people an update, and some of it would be good, some of it will be not that good. The way you leave them with confidence in your abilities is quite simply, you end by telling them what you're doing about it. Simple trick. Just, this is going well, this is not going well, here's what we're going to do about it. 80% of the times I've observed, people miss this last point. What happens is that then there's a loss of confidence. Oh, maybe you don't know what's happening here. And the story is incomplete. So complete the story with forward momentum. And I'll give an example of this in 1 second, but the overall structure I would recommend is the so what, begin with the synthesis, which is all about what's the end result of this, then give them the key points, and then leave them with the then what. So the synthesis, key point, and what's happening next. Straightforward, solves the problem every time. If you took just this thing away from today's discussion, I think it would have been 45 minutes or an hour, very, very well spent. Let's do one fun exercise, just looking at time. Okay, we have some time, so we'll do one fun exercise. So, synthesis. This is the often confusing point. So everyone, you have 1 minute. This is an article that's being published in a school newspaper. The primary audience is students. Can you give me the headline? You can just type it in the chat. What should the headline be? And don't look at other answers before you come up with your own. I'm seeing some. No answers yet. Who's going to be the brave one? There's another Shobhit on the line. That's awesome. Day of learning, teachers PA day. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of things. Teachers will be doing professional development for a day, learn and party. Teachers found an excuse to party. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for everyone's answers. Teachers planning to party this Thursday. What will you be doing? Educational event for teachers. Cool. So most of the answers are wrong. And I say that in jest, but like just trying to draw out the point of thinking about the so what. So students in a school, really, what is it that they care about? Right? They care about whether they need to come to school or not. Teachers could go do professional development. They could go to sleep. Students don't care. So an awesome deadline, awesome headline which some of you had was just like, school closed Thursday. End of story. And by the way, it's an example from the internet, so it's not that I came up with this, although I changed the text a little bit. But that's what I'm encouraging you to do. When you begin your product update, it's always like, what's the so what? So for example, for me, an update for a project is always like, it is running on time, or we hit a major milestone this week, or we are lost, like whatever, like that's the level to which I'm trying to get my update to. Then I give people the one level of detail so they have context, and that's the 3 points. So it's sort of the whole framework is the so what, which is the synthesis, the key points, and then the then what, which is what we're doing about it is X. If I had more time, I would definitely like give more examples, but this is what the product update needs to be. Cool. Hope this serves you. Awesome. The next one is, I'm sorry, I screwed up. And here the big thing that we're trying to do is, okay, now this is an opportunity, or this is a chance where they leave with a very negative impression of you, right? And what you want to do is deflect that. What you want to do is, yeah, I screwed up, but I'm not a bad person. I'm not inherently bad. That's the goal for this story. And so the apologizing for something conversation, I'll give you a framework that you can definitely use, which is like, when you're clearly at fault and you want to sort of not take the full blame for it, don't just apologize. First, state the intent. So this is actually a real example from one of my cases, so I can relate to it, which is that I was trying to transfer some work from my team to another team. They were going to be the eventual owners. And I sort of put deadlines like, let's do it this week, so we are off of it. And their leaders came back to me and said, like, you're pushing work on our team so soon, you don't care about them. And for me, I was like, okay, like, here's how I deflected it. Luckily, I remembered this framework, which was something like, hey, I thought it would be wise to finish this transition as soon as possible. This way, my team would work more productively. So that's my intent. However, there was something wrong with my thinking. Not with me. I'm not a bad person. It was just that I was focused on making things great for my team. I did not consider the impact on the team I'm transitioning the work to. And as usual, we always leave with forward momentum, which is, instead of the aggressive approach, I'm going to come up with a plan that gives teams more time to transition. And like, just think about it, like, like apologizing, oh, I'm sorry, I won't do that again, versus explaining the intent, acknowledging what was wrong, and leaving with a forward momentum. Just completely different impressions of you when you leave. Cool. Just checking, what time do I need to stop with Q&A? Yeah, Samin.
Yeah, probably if we have 20 minutes towards the end, that would be helpful.
Okay, so stop by 12:40. I stopped talking by 12:40. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, last one. Why don't we just build feature X? It's also one of my favorites. This one is all about why don't we build feature X, right? Like this is the conversation that we come up so many times as product managers. This one's definitely more complicated. It's more of a conversation. But the main thing I want to emphasize here is that you want them leaving thinking that they were heard, that you as a product manager knows the priorities, and that even if my feature was not picked up, I will participate in the process in the future. Because it's easy for you to become the no person as a product manager, the no as in the NO and not the KNOW person. And what happens is then people don't want to engage with you. They're like, oh, that's one busy person. I'm just going to leave them alone, even if I don't have ideas. So the core for what I always look to do is I always first seek to understand, just explore the reason for the request of the feature, like what's the problem that is being solved. And then after that comes the hard part, right? Where you have to tell them, yep, that's not, I can't even consider that until literally I've had to tell them, yeah, I will consider it in Q3 of next year. And literally it was Q1 of this year, but I knew there was going to be no way we would even get to the year and a half. So that's your synthesis concern. That look, we would love to take this on, but I don't think I can consider it until Q3. As a product, and now you knowing the story of your product becomes really important. As a product, we are really trying to do the overall theme this year. This, and then you tell them this, some things that are more important than this. Theme A, theme B, theme C. I would love to put it under consideration, and I'll ping you to reopen the discussion. That's it. The important things are, one, don't give them an out. Don't give them false hope that you're going to reconsider it, but put it in the context of everything else that you're delivering. And when you seek to understand first, but then you're also very clear in explaining your thinking on why it's not there, either people understand or they, they don't understand, they shout, but then at least I guess they're not happy, but they still understood. So that's the best thing you can do. So that's pretty much all I got. I just want to do one shout out. I am running, I guess these are the main stories. And given the lack of time, I do want to take some questions. I am running a challenge next week called Product Management Confidence Challenge, completely free. So if anybody wants to join, here's the link. Definitely encourage you to do that. You will have to listen to me for 5 whole days, which will be, half an hour each day, not more than that. But that's all I got. Open for questions, and I knew I knew some questions came up earlier, so maybe I can start by answering them. Questions. Oh yeah. So Siva asked a really great question. How do we make sure that the stakeholder is aligned to what we have updated him about the product? That's an excellent question, Siva. And I think there's a few questions you can ask to really make sure that the stakeholders aligned. Number one is, if they asked you a question, I always ask them, did that answer your question? Really good thing to ask. But the other one, I would like open it up and say, what do you think about it? Or do you have any concerns about it? As just a way of confirmation, because either they might not have followed along or might not agree with it. So it's definitely a great concept to check back in. Then another question. Any other questions? Siva has one more question, but I want to give other people a chance to ask if they have any. Okay, I'll answer this too then. Siva's working on a digital transformation from product side. How do we break down a big chunk of effort. How to prioritize effort and break it down at sprint level. Probably this will take like 4 hours to cover, especially the prioritization piece. But so for me, the key here is really about your team structures and how you could form teams so that they are very clearly responsible for certain initiatives. So I try wherever possible to give teams some sort of a charter, right? This is that you are responsible for making sure that our customer satisfaction levels go from A to B. That's your OKR, that's your objective. This is what the this is the team that we've allocated for that, and go. And then we will together figure out what the right priorities are based on what's happening. Okay, I'm going to keep going. There's more questions. So how do you provide stakeholders confidence that the prioritization choices you made are right? Great question. So how do you convince stakeholders of your rationale? What I found works best. 16 is and I hope I'm saying your name right. It's 16 maybe, which is it's just the it's all about the product narrative versus exactly the data, because the data can support you, but it's never going to tell you what to do, right? So for example, if you find that your customer satisfaction levels are dropping, it will not tell you why it's dropping. And now it's up for you to do that research. But the overall point is that you are telling them a story of your product, and that's basically the product narrative. And importantly, you're putting all the data that you're hearing into context, right? So you are seeing customer satisfaction levels drop down, for example, and you are seeing that people are using a certain piece a lot less. So maybe now you use all this information to help make a case for that story, but it's ultimately about the overall story that you tell. And once they get that, then what I found is that most of the prioritization choices are left to you. Now you could supplement that with other frameworks, which are great. Like I've heard about Rice framework and others, which are essentially just trying to say, for the story you've told and the objectives you've laid out, what will give you the most bang for the buck, right? You think you can gain so much, and by the way, this is the effort required, and so you divide it and you get the answer. So that's one way you could justify that. Okay, couple more questions. One from Pramesh and one from Shobhit. Again on prioritization, which is what framework that you use to prioritize new feature requests from various stakeholders. Oh, that's a tough one. Like, first question is, why are stakeholders coming up with feature requests? They're not in the business of that. What you should always seeking to be doing is I think Marty Kagan says very well, is to understand their context and bring it back to the team. So for example, somebody from customer success has a feature request, right? What you're trying to understand from them is, how much is it costing right now in support because of this problem? And then you tie it back to your OKRs. That is reducing that really a priority right now? Sometimes you make exceptions. Sometimes, I've had cases where just a simple missing capability for my customer support team was causing like 4 hours of work a week, and I was like, yep, totally, we'll make that exception and we'll go do something for it. But the point is that if you don't have that overall one more thing, if you don't have an overall narrative and an overall strategy, then prioritization can't really happen in vacuum of that. So as much as possible, I would try to establish that upfront and gain alignment on that upfront, and then everything else follows from that. But in the absence of that, trying to have a prioritization framework is just going to be really hard, and nobody will actually ever be happy. Okay, I'm going to jump to like some of the questions before. Yeah, so So I'll take a simple question. Can you tell a few storytellers that inspired you the most? Maybe I'll, uh, Elon Musk is one that definitely comes to mind. So does Steve Jobs. But the thing I want to point out is try to Google. I think it's called like Tesla product strategy or Tesla product things. The biggest thing, it was as simple as we'll build an expensive electric car, then we'll use that to build a cheaper electric car, then we'll use that money to build solar panels, and then we'll take everyone to Mars and we'll save the world. But the point was that it was so simple and it was laid out 10 years ago, and that's the strategy they're following. So like, I love that simplicity. There's no need for complex stories. Definitely Elon Musk and Steve Jobs are some of the best examples of storytellers. Steve Jobs, iPhone launch. That is a video that's must see. It is absolutely amazing. Simple, but absolutely amazing. Okay, I'm picking more. So trying to go back to the next one. Yeah. What type of change are you trying to bring in? Is it a change in our information flows or our gaps analyzed or them understanding what PM actually does? So I think this is, if it's back to the context of the overall product narrative, it's what are the kinds of drivers you're trying to change, kind of business drivers you're trying to change towards. So it could be things such as, we've discovered that we've done a really good job in this area for customers and we meet their needs, but in another area, we feel that's next frontier. So you might be telling a story of where your product has been. You might also be layering a story of what products, what people have experienced, or what people's next unsaid needs are. An example of that, I'll give you a Crashlytics example because it's public now. We always report crashes, but we launched this feature called Crash Insights a while ago. And it was all about, hey, we've always helped people understand what are the biggest crashes, help developers understand what are the biggest crashes affecting their app. What if we could help them solve it? Wouldn't that be cool? Like, that was the hook. And then we went into like, okay, how does Crash Insights come into play? Why we're unique to offer it? But always like, simplicity is one of the most important things. You bring that in, you like have that clear hook, and then you got people. So I mean, I spend 80-90% of my time when I'm working on a story on just the hook. I write it, I come back to it, I write the story, I come back to it. That's the one that's the most important element. Okay, 12:47. I should stop talking.
Yeah, there's tons of questions. Yeah, and honestly, thank you so much. I learned a ton, and from the comments in the group chat, it seems like everyone enjoyed this a lot. It means a lot for us for taking time to join us. Will people be able to contact you through email or LinkedIn if they have more questions? There seems to be tons of questions for you here.
Perfect. I'll put my LinkedIn profile here. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. It's amazing how much you can learn in literally 45 minutes. All right, next. So we're gonna have Dennis Chow. He's joining us today. Dennis was most recently the VP of Product Management at TouchBistro, a mobile restaurant point of sale software company based in Toronto with 15,000 customers in more than 100 countries. And prior to TouchBistro, Dennis held product leadership positions at Nexania, Intuit, Pivotal Payments, TELUS, and Rogers. And Dennis is actually one of my mentors, one of the thought leaders that I look up to in product management. I've learned a great deal from him going through product leadership and positioning myself in product management. And I figured a lot of us can also learn from Dennis, so I invited him to join us today. Before we get to the questions that have been submitted by our audience, Dennis, anything that you'd like to share before we get things started? Dennis, you're muted. Sorry, let me just make sure. Anna, can you please unmute Dennis? Still not hearing you, Dennis. 1 second.
try now.
All right. No, still muted. 1 second.
Is this good?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Good stuff.
Amazing, amazing. Hi everyone. Thanks for sticking around and sort of being willing to listen to the answers to some of the questions that I got. Shobhit, my hat's off to you, good sir. That was a fantastic session. Really, really glad that sort of you went first. Sort of anytime somebody else gets to go first, you can sit back and sort of let the nerves calm down a bit. But no, I really resonated a lot with sort of your concepts around sort of crafting compelling narratives and just really having a good story to tell. So yeah, thank you very much for that session.
Awesome. All right, Dennis. So the first question we have here is, what did the product team look like when you first joined TouchBistro, and how did you transform the product team?
Yeah, sure. So I joined TouchBistro in about December of 2017, and there was a bit of a void in the product organization. There were really two product managers, one designer and one technical writer when I joined. And as you can probably imagine, not a lot happening with sort of the amount of expectations and hopes that were put on the product organization with that few folks. Not a lot happening. When I got there, when I had my first conversations with the product folks, they had mentioned to me it was a lot of just sort of blocking and tackling, and just sort of really looking at finding creative ways to say either no outright or not right now. Perhaps we can revisit this later. So needless to say, there was a tremendous backlog of items across multiple product lines. So with TouchBistro, the primary product was the core point of sale, but you also had sort of a complementary suite of products. You had a reporting platform, you had customer-facing display, you had a loyalty platform, all these other things that sort of tie into a point of sale in a restaurant setting. Multiple product lines, tremendous backlog of requests for additional features, enhanced functionality, and largely the team not really sort of getting much done just due to the limited resources that they had, both not only on the product side but on the engineering side as well. So really, sort of to answer the second part of that question, how did I transform the team? There was a joint commitment right from the onset between sort of myself as the head of product and my colleague in the CTO who ran our engineering group to really form squads, to form more squads, as the key goal was really execution and delivery on many already validated ideas that were just sort of sitting in the backlog, essentially just waiting for people to arrive and get started to work. So this notion of let's spin up squads as we add more engineering folks, as we add more product folks, the early days were about adding more product managers and designers first. Once we hit a critical mass on, sort of multiple product managers, multiple designers, all sitting in squads with their engineering counterparts, from there was just sort of adding a management layer in the product organization. I've got sort of firm principles. If you're a people leader, not just in product, I think in any capacity, you really start to struggle when the number of folks that report into you goes beyond 5. I think it's not to say that it's impossible, but I think in terms of the effectiveness of being able to really sit with your direct reports and to manage effectively, I think that starts to really get compromised once you go beyond 5. 5 days a week, 5 fingers on your hand, sort of there you go, right? So yeah, from there, sort of once you've got critical mass in terms of, folks actually, executing and delivering, it was this idea to add a management layer. So this is where we look to add a director of product as well as a director of product design to manage each of those key groups. In the last year, we started to really introduce this third notion of product operations. And sort of folks who may be aware, product operations is this new thing that seems to be sort of really gaining a lot of traction, a lot of momentum in the product space. Sort of it really was born with respect to the TouchBistro context. It was really born out of a desire to provide almost this internal service agency to our PMs and designers. So imagine, if you will, sort of a massive assembly line that is product development. We have, people manning the assembly line, everybody from, product managers to designers to, sort of developers and QA folks. We needed, and we didn't necessarily need this to the degree of one person for each squad, but we needed representation to really help with several things. So our product operations team was comprised of a couple of data analysts, because what we were finding was there was an influx in the number of requests around finding greater insights and trying to capture data and analytics behind that data across some of the things that were being thought of in terms of how do we build this, should we look at that, right? So I always talk about product being sort of equal parts art and science, equal parts, following your gut versus following the data. So with the rise of these requests, we looked at, sort of bringing on a couple data analysts. We also had a couple technical writers. Again, right, technical writers really providing all of the in-depth documentation, the ins and outs on your products. The third group we had, and this was sort of really unique to the context at TouchBistro at the time. We had several restaurants in the Toronto area that were really, really big fans of the company, of the product, and it was fantastic. And they had always volunteered to be, hey, if you've got a new release coming, sort of throw it on my, in my restaurant. I'd love to test it out for you guys. So that evolved sort of organically for us to really create this sort of closed beta where, we had a couple friendly customers that were identified that we could go to time and time again to really test, the new release, the new features and functionality in a very sort of controlled setting, but also a live setting before we sort of move to general availability. So we had internally, again, as part of the product operations group, this notion of product testing managers that really perform sort of equal parts UAT, user acceptance testing internally while still within the company. And then sort of as it was getting ready to move down the assembly line, they'd be coordinating and executing all the beta trials with the beta customers that we had. So three key groups, sort of data analysis or data analytics, technical writing, and sort of product testing. This is the sort of the mishmash of folks that made up what we called product operations. So currently that's sort of what the organization looks like. You've got product managers, you've got product designers, and you've got this third group of product operations. They're also led by a director who, again, and then the mandate there is to act as that internal service agency for the PMs and the designers in their squads.
Very cool. And then the next question we have here in Slido is prioritizing product roadmaps during the pandemic, which seems very timely. So a lot of us as product managers and product leaders have this big question that a lot of us right now trying to figure out how this pandemic and the COVID-19 is going to affect our product development roadmap. Should we even have a roadmap when there are a lot of unknowns? And what do you recommend, what you've seen success with when it comes to prioritizing things and getting things done during such time?
Yeah. I love the nature of that question. I mean, on the one hand, sort of you've got every news sort of outlet reporting, sort of once in a lifetime, we've never seen something like this before. And then sort of it's like, hey, when you see these types of situations, how do you react? As if sort of I've been there, done that. I'll happily tell everybody, sort of this is a first for me, like it is probably for everybody else in the world. But that to be said, sort of, still a couple of thoughts maybe worth offering, right? I think without a doubt, I think we're all recognizing that timelines are drastically shortened in our current environment, right? I'd suggest, it's only now, we've been about a couple months now in lockdown. It's only now that we're really getting around to being able to see past next week and maybe start to think about what the world looks like next month, right? I think next quarter is still really, really risky. And I think next year is, still, a wild guess at best, right? So, sort of thinking about the timelines and the accuracy of timelines, just in life as a whole, and appreciating sort of the sentiment for what it is, I'd suggest that product roadmaps should be absolutely reflecting this current reality as well, right? Ordinarily, sort of what I want to share with folks is, when you're talking about roadmaps and you're talking about the timelines associated with roadmaps, you've always got, sort of multiple roadmaps on the go, right? You can talk about sort of what's going to happen in the next quarter. Maybe you're going to talk about what's happening in the next 6 months, right? So you have quarterly, maybe half year, maybe you've got a year, maybe you've got 18 months. I've seen 3 and 5 year roadmaps as well. My advice to folks on roadmaps, especially as you start moving from, sort of, shorter timelines to further and further out timelines, really it's the further out the timeline on a roadmap, the lower the resolution. And by resolution, I'm referring to image sharpness and quality. The lower the resolution and the confidence of delivery timing, right? In our current time, I can't see how anybody would be able to speak to any kinds of plans beyond the next quarter or 2. We simply don't have enough information yet about how society in general is going to get back to normal, or if an entirely new normal is even going to be defined for us, right? So sort of, again, right, with this being the context in front of us, how on earth are you really looking at anything beyond sort of the next 3 to 6 months? And I would strongly advocate that sort of, product folks, sort of everybody on this call, especially product leaders, who are, usually responsible for delivering this kind of outlook, be candid and be transparent in sharing that and saying, there's still a lot of unknowns. Now, this being said, I can sincerely appreciate how that might not, sort of work for sort of folks out there. So for that cohort of folks who are in situations where, sort of that's just not good enough of an answer, I'll give you a bit of a cheat. That cheat is, if you're not familiar with it, get yourself familiar with McKinsey's 3 horizons model. Sort of, they talk about 3 horizons. Horizon 1 is in the near term, and the things that are in the near term generally a little bit lower in value. But the notion in Horizon 1 is, sort of, these are the set of activities, the set of plans that really look to defend and expand the current core business, right? Horizon 2 is a little further out. It's a more midterm time frame. There's higher value associated with the initiatives in this Horizon 2. But again, right, the bulk of activities you can summarize largely as fostering emerging new business. And then you've got Horizon 3, so again, right, the timing is the furthest out. This is the longest term. And, sort of correspondingly, you'd assume it to have the highest value, right? These are the big game changers. But again, the summary there is you want to seed future business. If you can plot out your plans along these 3 horizons, I think it'd be fair. I don't think you'd get a lot of pushback around sort of then crossing out, in effect, to say, look, Horizon 3, let's not even talk about. Like Horizon 1, again, right, the notions of resolution and confidence, this is what we're focused on in the right here, right now. Horizon 2, happy to have conversations on an ongoing basis with various stakeholders across the organization, and let's talk about how we plan for that. But Horizon 3, again, until we as a society gain more confidence in terms of the general outlook, there's no way in which we're going to be able to talk about that.
Absolutely. The next question we have is, what are you looking for when you're hiring your product manager? What differentiates a great product manager from a good product manager?
Yeah. What's a good sort of web conference without a bit of controversy, right? So this is where I'm going to attempt to throw down a little bit of controversy and provide a bit of provocative answers. When I look for a good product manager, when I look to hire a product manager, period, what I'm actually looking for is diversity. So I'm looking for backgrounds and skills and experiences that may not already be present on the team. I am a firm believer that diversity is absolutely essential and beneficial for product teams. when I talk about diversity and talk about backgrounds and skills and experiences, I'll dive in a little bit further. Another thing I'd sort of just highly recommend, if folks are not familiar with, you might want to take a look at in terms of just researching online, the notion of T-shaped skill sets. Okay, so the notion of the T-shaped skill set, you have the horizontal part of the T that really encapsulates breadth. You have a numerous array of different types of skills that sort of are sort of good practices, good things, good competencies for any decent product manager to have. Right. So you've got sort of the breadth that really talks about the horizontal line on your T. The depth is that vertical line on your T, right? So, depending on, the array of skills you have, you may have a specialization, you may have a personal interest, a personal preference in sort of one skill set than the others. You may just naturally be stronger due to the culmination of the experiences that you've had in your work history in sort of this particular type of activity, this particular discipline than others. I think everybody's going to agree that, sort of good product organizations have a good array and try to capture sort of that full breadth, as well as to try to capture as much depth as possible. And this is where I would say it's important as a product leader. What you want to do is you want to have an audit. You want to have a good inventory accounting of the skills on your team. You want to understand on your team, however it's made up of however many people, what each T-shape of each individual looks like. Because I think it's your job as the leader of that team who's in a hiring decision to take a look at when you stack everybody's T-shape on top of each other and you look down upon it on a bird's eye view. I think your goal should be to get a full block covered. So you want as much breadth and you want as much depth. This is where different T-shapes will overlap. Some people will have a T-shape that's a little more like a right angle. Other people may have a T-shape that's, dead center, right? Other people will have a T-shape a little more on the other side. You want to make sure when you overlay everything on everybody on top of each other, that as a team, you've got, sort of the breadth of skills and you've got the depth of skills covered. So that's a principle I really firmly believe in, and that's really what I look for whenever I'm looking to hire a product manager. I mean, sort of that's the insight I wanted to offer you guys. I mean, I could have given you guys the canned response of, well, like I'm looking for somebody who's, if I'm looking for an integrations product manager, if you've got experiences with APIs and partner discussions, that'd be great. I mean, that's absolutely, it goes without saying, but in an attempt to offer you guys a little bit something extra, a little bit something more, it's this notion of, how are you most able to cover the entire team and sort of looking at your team as a whole. What do you guys possess, to a great degree, what's missing, and then sort of hire for what's missing, all in the name of trying to fill in that gap. So that's that first part of that question, right? What do you look for when you're hiring a product manager? What differentiates a good product manager or a great PM from a good PM? Some of you may be really upset with this answer, and I apologize in advance. It's time and experience. As far as I'm concerned, that's what sets great PMs apart from good PMs. To unpack that further, to let you guys know sort of where my thinking is on that, with time, with experience, your T grows. That's it, right? You start out, maybe you're coming into product brand new, sort of like this is your first role out of school, or you've done a career switch and you've moved from one discipline into product. You're going to carry with you a current set of sort of competencies that you already possess. Some you may possess to a deeper degree than others, or you may very well be shallow across the board, right? Your T could be tiny, your T could be, lopsided. Time and experience is what is going to allow you to both broaden your T in terms of gaining new competencies and gaining access and exposure to different skills, as well as being able to do those types of skills several times over. It's not good enough just to say one and done. I've done that type of exercise once. I'm an expert at it. I think we all are going to agree. Show me how you've done it under different settings, under different contexts, under different conditions, right? So it's that notion. You're just not going to get that without applying it over, sort of a dedicated, significant amount of time, right? So, I think that's what makes really great PMs, folks who've been in the field, folks who've had the time, folks who are not sort of rushing into what's next, folks who are sitting down and appreciating, going through, sort of the work that they're doing in the moment, and recognizing that, everything I do every day that I'm here, I'm working towards, a bigger T.
Love it. Such a great answer. Sweet. Awesome. So there are tons of other questions. I'm going to ask you one more question, and that's the last
Sure.
one. But Dennis,
Yeah.
would people be able to connect with you on LinkedIn and ask you any other questions that they might have?
Certainly.
Awesome. So last question, we're gonna try to keep it short. So someone asked, some software companies have a lot of tension between product and sales, but that's not the case at TouchBistro. What's the key to getting product and sales working together effectively as a team? And I think, again, this is becoming more relevant now with the COVID-19, a lot of sales team having very aggressive targets that they're having a hard time hitting those targets. How do you go about working together to make sure that you as a team are successful?
Yeah. That's an awesome question. Thank you. I'm equal parts surprised and also very sort of pleased to hear that there's an impression out there that sort of product and sales are getting along really well in TouchBistro. Depending on certain members of the sales team, certain members of the product team, you may ask, they might disagree with you, but the fact that sort of somebody out there thinks that we work great together, I think that's fantastic. Here's what I can tell you. If you're in a product organization, you can probably take that question and substitute the word sales, and you could probably put in customer success, and the same universal tensions and conflicts that are bound to happen would also apply. So right off the bat, I'll tell you the things that we did with sales, we made sure that we also did with customer success. Ultimately, what you want, those are two very, very key stakeholder groups in terms of providing insights and feedback into the product organization. Those folks are, sort of on the phones all day, every day, talking to your existing customers and the existing problems that they may be having with your software, or potential customers and the things that they value in evaluating whether or not your product or service is the right thing for them to select, right? As one person, as one product team made up of several persons, there's only so far your reach can go, right? So why not amplify your reach by sort of unlocking the ability and the reach of your customer success and your sales teams accordingly to be able to help get that feedback. Now, of course, all that to be said, degrees of separation, right? There's sort of always going to be a little bit of the intention lost in the message, sort of the every additional degree of handing the baton on or handing the message down that occurs. So, sort of I'm always a firm believer of, yes, absolutely, for the sake of reach, for the sake of ensuring quantity in feedback, leverage those teams that are talking on the front lines to customers and prospects, but also make sure you're complementing that as a product team by going out and sort of, getting that firsthand feedback direct from customers and users yourself. All this to be said, right? Talk about the importance of why it's key to get along well with these groups. I will tell you that there were several key activities that we did to really foster a deep sense of camaraderie amidst just the ongoing collaboration that you're naturally going to have between, product and sales. First thing we did was we had regular sync up meetings between the product managers and sales organizations to allow for exchanges in feedback. It was a two-way street. So on the first hand, it was, sales to product around what prospects are looking for, and, sort of from the other way, going the other way, product to sales, which items were being prioritized and why they were being prioritized over other items that perhaps sales might have raised in the past. So there was an ongoing, regularly scheduled meeting that would allow for sales and product to have those exchanges. A second thing we did was we instituted what I called mile walking days. So walk a mile in my shoes, see the world through my eyes, see how I feel. So PMs would spend a day or a half day shadowing sales reps with a second headset, sitting on the floor with them. We did that. We ensured we made sure to do that every quarter. It got to the point where sort of I really tried to push for that. I put that in everybody's quarterly objectives. Sort of, are you doing the walk a mile days? Are you seeing the world through our sales reps' eyes? Are you seeing the world through our customer success reps' eyes? Right? What does that look like? You'd be surprised. Sort of the natural and organic interactions that happen in between customer calls that sort of they'll replay a previous the conversation that just happened with the prospect, or they'll prepare for the upcoming conversation. They'll look at the Salesforce notes and be like, oh, they're going to ask for this, I got to prepare the proper answer. And just the natural collaboration that happens sort of in that moment, what that does to really, again, foster that stronger camaraderie amongst the two organizations as a whole. A third thing we did was a commitment to sales success. So we agreed on a certain set of criteria that, if that certain set of criteria appeared in a particular deal, then we would allow sales to bring product into the sales presentation, right into the sales cycle. So if there was a certain deal and it met certain criteria, didn't matter what PMs were doing, didn't matter what product folks were doing. If that salesperson needed assistance, if they felt like having a product person who could speak a little more confidently, a little more sort of in depth in terms of sort of what the capabilities are, and then sort of significantly, I think with a lot of these special deals, customers or prospects wanting to know where the product is going and having the product manager be on call to be able to share some of those plans, we allowed for that, and we absolutely encouraged that. And sort of I made sure that everybody in the sales organization knew that that was available to any member of the product team, right up to including myself. So, on certain deals, if the deal was significant enough, I'd make myself available to jump on the call with the sales rep to really see what we could do in terms of instilling that confidence, not just in the product, but in the organization, to make that prospect say, yeah, this is the right choice for me. I'm going to go ahead and sign. The last thing that we did was just really encourage regular one-on-one coffees and lunches, between the leadership and management levels of the two groups, right? I think this is where, sort of when you have a requester and a receiver of said requests, if that becomes a natural relationship, then, I think there's a natural tension, there's a natural organic conflict that's going to happen, because sometimes the receiver of the request will say yes, sometimes they'll say no, right? So you can't win all the time. And so if that is the sole scope of interactions between those two groups and between members of those two groups, then I think you're naturally going to have tension and conflict, and you're going to walk by the halls, you're going to see each other at sort of town halls, and you're going to tense up. But if you can break that by also including interactions where sort of you're not necessarily talking about the direct work at hand, you get a chance to let your guard down, you get a chance to share some of your struggles, that goes a long way. And I think sort of we saw that firsthand when we had sort of, product directors and sales directors get together and sort of just form organic relationships where they'd go have a coffee or they'd go have lunch, and, sort of you get a chance to just, really have, just a jam session with each other, to be like, hey, what's stressing you out? Here's the mountain of crap that I'm under today. Oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to dig out of this. Right. And then I think natural feelings of sympathy and empathy arise, where it's like, wow, this guy or this gal's really got it tough, sort of, I got to keep that in mind. And I think sort of, it's ensuring that those types of moments happen, so that when you go back to those more formalized meetings where there's requests being made, you have that appreciation for what the other party is under in terms of pressure. Those are, I'd say, were sort of the key things that we made sure to really get off the ground in terms of the types of interactions we had between product and sales.
Love it, and it worked really well. And I've tried a lot of this that Dennis mentioned, previous B2B companies that I've been to, based on the feedback and the coaching that Dennis provided, and it does work really well. So I highly recommend you to try it for yourself. Awesome, thank you so much, Dennis. Thank you, Shobhit. Jeff and I had a great time hosting this, and please stay tuned. We're gonna have another session soon, so please stay tuned, and we'll see you all again in a month.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, bye.